You've probably met someone like this. The person who seems friendly enough, but becomes quiet when conversations turn into casual chatter. Nice weather today. What do you do for work? Busy week! Huh. Most people move through these exchanges without thinking. Small talk is everywhere. Elevators, offices, family gatherings, waiting rooms. But for some people, these conversations feel exhausting almost immediately. They don't hate people. They don't hate conversation. They dislike interactions with no real substance. And psychology has a lot to say about why that happens. First, it helps to understand what small talk actually does socially. Small talk exists mainly as a social lubricant. Its purpose isn't to exchange meaningful information. It signals safety, politeness, and familiarity. It's a ritual that allows strangers or acquaintances to test the waters before deeper communication happens. For many people, this works perfectly fine. But for others, the brain processes communication very differently. Some individuals have what psychologists call a high need for cognitive depth. Their minds naturally gravitate toward complex ideas, meaningful discussions, emotional nuance, or abstract thinking. When someone like that enters a conversation that stays on the surface, their brain doesn't feel stimulated. It feels underused. It's similar to being asked to solve a puzzle that only has 2 pieces. Technically, it's a puzzle, but it doesn't engage you. People who dislike small talk often prefer conversations that explore why people think the way they do, how experiences shape behavior, or what ideas mean in a broader sense. They enjoy conversations about motivations, beliefs, stories, and experiences, not just updates about schedules or weather. Another factor involves mental energy. Small talk requires a specific kind of social performance. You're expected to smile at the right moments. Respond with socially appropriate phrases. Ask predictable follow-up questions. Really? That's interesting. Oh, wow. For someone who naturally communicates more directly or deeply, maintaining this performance can feel draining. Psychology calls this social masking, adjusting your natural communication style to match what the social situation expects. Many people do this automatically. But for those who value authenticity strongly, small talk can feel like acting in a role that doesn't fit. They're not trying to be rude. They're trying to avoid a conversation that feels artificial. There's also an interesting neurological component. Research in personality psychology shows that people who score high in introversion often process external stimulation differently. Contrary to the stereotype, introverts necessarily dislike people. What they tend to dislike is constant low-value stimulation. A long conversation about ideas can energize them, but 10 short conversations about surface-level topics can drain them quickly. It's not about silence versus talking, it's about depth versus repetition. And small talk often feels repetitive. How was your weekend? Busy week. Any plans for the holiday? For someone who's heard and answered these questions hundreds of times, the brain begins to experience them almost like background noise. Another reason some people dislike small talk has to do with emotional transparency. Surface conversations usually avoid real feelings. They would rather talk about something real, even if it's uncomfortable, than stay in a conversation where both people are carefully avoiding authenticity. In their mind, skipping small talk isn't about being intense. It's about being sincere. There's also a personality trait called openness to experience, which psychologists associate with curiosity, imagination, and intellectual exploration. People high in openness often seek conversations that expand perspective. They're interested in ideas like, why do people believe what they believe? What shapes personality? How do experiences change someone's worldview? Compared to those kinds of questions, small talk can feel like a closed door. It doesn't lead anywhere new. But there's another layer that many people overlook. Disliking small talk can also be connected to social fatigue. In modern environments, especially workplaces, people often interact with dozens of individuals throughout the day. Each small interaction requires attention, politeness, and responsiveness. For someone who processes social information deeply, These repeated interactions accumulate quickly. What looks like just a short conversation to one person can feel like another demand on mental bandwidth to someone else. Over time, that accumulation leads people to avoid situations where small talk is unavoidable. Not because they dislike others, because they're protecting their mental energy. Another psychological explanation involves communication efficiency. Some individuals simply prefer communication that has a clear purpose. They feel more comfortable discussing ideas, solving problems, telling stories, or exploring meaningful topics. Small talk, on the other hand, often feels like conversation without direction. It starts, floats for a few minutes, and then fades away. For people who naturally value clarity and efficiency, that pattern can feel confusing. They wonder, why are we talking if nothing meaningful is being exchanged? This doesn't mean they don't value connection. In fact, many people who dislike small talk deeply value authentic relationships. They just prefer to build those relationships through shared experiences, meaningful discussions, or genuine curiosity about each other's lives. Interestingly, research also shows that once conversations move beyond small talk into deeper territory, many people report feeling more connected and happier. But the transition from surface conversation to meaningful discussion requires social risk. Someone has to go first! Someone has to ask a slightly deeper question, and that step can feel uncomfortable in casual environments. So, small talk continue. Another important point is that people who avoid small talk often observe more than they speak. They pay attention to tone, body language, emotional cues, and context. While others are filling the silence with conversation, they're quietly analyzing the dynamics of the room. In psychology, this tendency toward observation is linked with reflective processing, thinking before speaking. These individuals often prefer to speak when they feel they have something meaningful to contribute, not just to keep the conversation alive. And this difference in communication style can sometimes create misunderstandings. Someone who dislikes small talk may be perceived as distant, arrogant, or uninterested, but internally, their experience is very different. They might actually enjoy the presence of others. They simply prefer connection that feels real. They want conversations where people are curious, thoughtful, and open. Conversations where silence is allowed, where questions have meaning, where answers reveal something about who someone truly is. Because for them, communication isn't just about passing time. It's about understanding people. And when conversations reach that level, something interesting happens. The same person who seemed quiet during small talk suddenly becomes engaged. They ask thoughtful questions. They listen closely. They share insights. It's not that they dislike conversation, they just prefer conversations that go somewhere. Psychology reminds us that communication styles vary widely between people. Some individuals thrive on social rituals like small talk because it helps them navigate relationships smoothly. Others thrive on depth, reflection, and meaningful dialogue. Neither style is wrong. They simply reflect different ways the mind processes interaction. So when someone seems uncomfortable with small talk, it may not be arrogance. It may simply be that their brain is waiting for a conversation that feels real. Not louder, not longer, just deeper.
If this video made you see people, or even yourself, in a new way, take a second to support the channel. Like the video, subscribe for more psychology insights like this, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you enjoy small talk, or do you prefer deeper conversations? Your perspective might help someone else feel understood.